Hello, everyone.
Hey, Sarah.
Hi, Vicky. How are you?
I'm getting by. How are you?
I'm doing good. Was busy couple of weeks.
Yeah, it really has been.
Hi, Stephen.
Hello, everyone.
Hi. Hi, Naveen.
Realized I have the honored duty of being facilitator today, so I am going to, I'll share my screen in a bit and just give me a second to set some stuff up. In the meantime, I see that folks are entering their names on the notes, which is awesome. Please continue doing that. I'm going to share the link in chat if you don't. Vicky beat me to it. Thank you, Vicky.
Your hair's looking good today, Augie.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can I suggest that we move the template to the bottom? Because the first thing I do is go edit the template.
Edit the template, yeah. I think we should just, I think we should highlight that the template is maybe in bigger words that the template is the template.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
It happens every
you can
time.
make it.
It happens
You
every
can
time.
make it 100. Yeah, you can make 128 point. It won't help. I think just put it in the bottom and note at the top. Hey, there's a template for those who actually look for it. Because I think. Sorry, go ahead.
We need a spot to put stuff for the next meeting, in between meetings.
I would suggest create the next meeting agenda starting at the end, as soon as the one meeting ends.
So we'll do this. Yeah. We'll start with upcoming topics, right?
While we're on the topic of the doc, did we ever decide what the difference between standing agenda updates and open issues is? Or where we put what?
No. All right, so let's do this. Let's start with this one. Brian, are you already on the call, by the way? Feel free to not answer me if you're not there. All right. Are any of these demos this third-party dependency management checks in Godofredo?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, cool. I will pull that up then. We'll do that first. Get that out of the way. And I will sort out what this thing should look like after the meeting. Cool. All right. So it is 3 past 4 if you are in the US Eastern. Hello, everyone. Today is April 7th. This is one of the biweekly meetings of the Scorecards and All-Star projects. This is a meeting that will be recorded and available on the internet later, so please be mindful of what you say and do. Please be sure to adhere to the OpenSSF Code of Conduct, which essentially amounts to be kind, be awesome people, be excellent to each other. So yeah, let's jump into it. We have a standing agenda, which I see some people are commenting on. We're moving some things around. Jeff, let me pull your update down. And okay, you already did that. Cool. All right, let's jump in. If there are any new folks, I would love if you took some time to introduce yourself to the group. and what you're looking to do here.
No new friends?
No new friends? Okay. All right. So this looks like it's an update for later. Do we have any announcements? Okay. Any project updates, roadmap updates? It's going to be a really easy meeting.
It's kind of a new.
Oh, hope reads the turtle. You'll get there. I threw in some stuff. I see other people threw in stuff. You're just not quite there at the
Oh yeah, we're getting there. Yeah.
Is it
okay?
These are kind of new topics, announcements, project updates. Do we have like an idea of what kind of the scope that is?
I think we still need to massage this a little bit.
Yeah.
I would say that project updates really fall into everything that's being filled out under open issues and one-off discussions. In terms of announcements, I think announcements will hit when we're either getting close to a release or releasing. So we can probably skip this section. In terms of roadmap updates, we'll talk about that in Brian's section around mission and vision updates. So with that said, sorry, Jeff, were you about to?
I mean, I did do a release of All-Star last week or the week before. It's the first release we've made because it's typically just used by people as an app. And I have a proposal for release process for like a cadence that's not been adopted yet. So that's there in issues if anybody has comments on that. But we'll be making releases on a regular basis at some point.
Cool. So there is a V2 release. Please check that out if you haven't already. Congrats, Jeff. That's at ghcr.io/OpenSSF or OSSF All-Star V2.0. I did note in your release process that you mentioned that's not interested in Semver for reasons, and that's fine. I think we should clarify that there are Semver, you're using Semver compliant versioning, but without the guarantees, right?
Yeah, and this is still a proposal, so comment here.
Cool. Sweet. I'll tag just scorecard maintainers in case they want to check that out. And anybody else? Do we have a link to this in the meeting notes?
Okay, so I have a small announcement. I'm hoping to release a scorecard action release in the next 2 weeks with very simple update, which would be support for the GitHub token. I think we talked about this last time, but I think I'm going to start working on this next week.
Okay, cool. That is awesome.
Sorry, Lauren, question on that. Obviously, it's not going to include the Go version, right? Or
no, it's just going to be trying to unblock some people who don't want to use Pat's token, and then I think the next release will be the one on using Go and maybe badges. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'll jump in to help out with that as well, because we still have some tidy work to do on the Go side. Cool. Scorecard. And thank you for the scribes that are already here. But if anyone, please do feel free to take notes and assist us as we go.
I had a quick question.
Sure.
Have folks looked at the recent GitHub blog on how they detect like known vulnerabilities in a diff. Like
Ooh, yeah,
that.
they've had lots of cool announcements recently. So there's one on the there's one around the project beta updates and adding things to project beta boards, and then the other one that you'd mentioned. So there's some new functionality. I think one from the enterprise side around secret scanning, and then on the, I believe they also released a new API for dependencies.
Yes, that's the one I was thinking. Like, if we should be leveraging that in terms
Yeah.
of, because then we can, let's say, look at vulnerabilities in those dependencies, or even scorecards, postures for those dependencies, right?
Yes. I don't know how to get to the GitHub announcements log, but I will try to pull
I
this up.
actually put it in chat.
Okay, perfect.
There is an API endpoint for it. I was just curious if people looked at it or looked at the efficacy of things.
Yeah. Can you post that within the notes? Because
The notes, yeah.
Yeah, because as soon as you painfully know, I think once this chat ends, the information goes away forever. I just copied the one that was in the chat. If there's another announcement.
No, that's the correct.
So this is the one, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
they mentioned new API endpoint. Yeah, that's
okay.
So
that one I don't have.
Dependency graph. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're waiting for this for SBOM, maybe some SBOM creation automation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I have REST reference. Is that, whoops. Is this the one, the REST/reference/dependency-graph?
yes.
I believe so. Yeah, I'll drop it into the notes too.
Okay, I put something in the notes. I don't know if it's the right one. I don't know if it's the one you mean. I found something that seems to describe what you mean.
The blog in the chat links to the dependency graph reference.
Okay, that's how I found it.
Okay, cool. All right, perfect. All right, and we wrote the same thing, so I will just delete mine. Sweet.
Okay. Oh, I added yours. Oops. Okay.
No, you're good. We're good. We're all good. All right. Cool. Any other announcements before we jump to the next thing? All right. So I don't have, it's not, I don't think it's a here announcement specifically, but I do want to mention that, which is kind of cool. So on the Kubernetes side, we just landed some improvements in our image promotion process that will start signing all of the container images. So we're hoping with the next the Kubernetes 124 release coming out optimistically 2 weeks or less than 2 weeks, that those images will be signed by our image promoter, and then we'll start going into the fun stuff of trust delegation for separate teams and stuff. But yeah, not really relevant to here, but I did want to mention it since you're all hip about security.
All right, I'm going to add that to our notes anyway, so that it's done. There it is.
And if you want to, what would be the right way to do this? Drop a quick note here.
This is a SIG store, right?
Yeah, cosine SIG store, all that fun business.
Yeah, cosine's part of SIG store. Yep.
So if you want to read the tracking and try to do the breadcrumb stuff, that's here. And we'll come out with we'll likely do a cross post, kind of one from the SIG store side and then another one from the Kubernetes side. I'll peek behind the scenes for the maintainer stuff. Okay, cool. Anything else announcements wise before we jump into
I'm curious from Kubernetes side, does it use All-Star or Scorecards at all, the Kubernetes project?
So
they use badges. I don't know about anything else.
It's not consistent across the board, since all of the since we've got like core Kubernetes, which is managed by like everyone, like the core Kubernetes process is kind of like under my team's purview on the release engineering side, but like release engineering elsewhere, depending on the sub project, may be handled differently, right? So there's some consistencies, but they're not, so we're personally not using the scorecard or All-Star right now, outside of like things that I have run on my local. We have enabled CodeQL and Scorecard for the for K-release, which is where we do a lot of our release engineering work. So there is we are using the Scorecard action here. As you can see from security, there are tons of fun things to clean up, which I won't click into, but they're mainly around pin dependencies. So there are some questions about pin dependencies that I think will come with some of the notes that Jordan left in Slack, which I transposed into a GitHub issue for tracking, but really around when we should and shouldn't pin dependencies. I think, for the Kubernetes examples, what comes up is instances where we've got images that are, say the let's say the Debian base, right? Cluster Docker file. Yeah, wrong one. So in instances where they may flag something like from base image that's parameterized, right? So I think there's some maybe work to be done to recognize when images are, because we build multiple variants for all of these images. So I think there's some work to be done to like OS code name to build out this, right? So this is never going to be pinned to an exact, an exact version and digest. Anyhow, I tangented. All right, let's jump into the discussion on third-party dependency management checks. Godofredo, want to introduce yourself and get started?
Yeah. Cool. So my name is Godofredo. I'm working on the Flutter team, basically Dart and Flutter, and we have been enabling scorecards for many different projects. One of the things that we found when we were trying to remove all the binaries across all the different repositories, we found that multiple people were adding binaries as a way of vendoring some of the dependencies. I know in some cases, the best practice is that we should be using like third-party folder and put everything that is external to the project that is going to be coming as a dependency added into that folder, so that we have everything encapsulated in a single place. That would be easier for everyone to check.
So I'm gonna pause really quick and just mention that is a similar to like the hack folder. Third party is a Googleism, and so it's not necessarily a best practice. It is something that has kind of like spread into the ecosystem as a result of usage in Google. So I'm just going to call that out.
I see. Yeah, and that's great. And actually, I wanted to open discussion about this. Like, is there anything that we can do to try to get all those dependencies in a single place, rather than spread around multiple folders in the different repositories? Or if there is any good practice that we can follow here?
That's a great question. And I don't think it has an easy answer, because I think it's going to depend on the use case. There is, I think, it would be worthwhile to review so Google has a playbook, if you will, for releasing open source code, right? And I think some of it goes into what to do when you're dealing with third-party code, right? I primarily work on Golang projects. So this is roughly a solved problem if you decide to use a vendor folder or or just mention them as direct dependencies, or use separate module caches, right? So there are ways around it, and depending on what language you're dealing with, for things that I'm not familiar with, I can't comment on, but I think it would be worthwhile to kind of check out the Google guidance there on third party.
Yeah, I would say most of the dependencies that are falling into this use case are Java dependencies. And some of them are, they cannot be downloaded from Maven or any other repository like that.
And why is that?
I believe one of them is, in this case, the project that I'm talking about is the IDE for Flutter, the IntelliJ IDE, and one of those binaries is a licensed binary. So I'm not sure how to deal with that one, but basically from the Chromium perspective, the way they do it is they have something called zipd that is downloading those binaries at runtime rather than having them check them. But I'm not sure from the open source perspective, how should we deal with those?
So I just linked in the notes the preparing for an open source release, the third-party component section from the Google open source documents. I'm not sure that everything that you need is going to be there, because I know that some of that's also like internal specific. May have internal specific links. So I'm reading as I go.
Yeah, I would say the follow-up question to this one, would it be, if it would be worthy to create like a check for this kind of things? Or
so Kubernetes does some stuff like this too. We have a vendor, so for core Kubernetes, there is a vendor folder, and we do track, is this, if there are forbidden dependencies for licensing reasons, maybe we do track that, and I can dig up links to that. But yeah, I would agree that you need some way of tracking if this is a sane dependency to take on, and if it is not your code. David, you have your hand up.
Yeah. So regarding this whole, artifacts and such, I had put in a comment on the All-Star stuff that maybe what we need to do is enable projects to say basically an artifact ignore, like a GitHub, like a .get ignore. Well, yes, I know about that one. For whatever reason, I think that's okay. I'm
yeah.
particularly worried about false positives, where no, this is not an issue, and that sort of stuff.
So I think that's another discussion. So I think the first question is, are there best practices for handling binaries and dependency binaries in your repo, right? And I'm hearing some crickets here, or that it's like kind of language specific, right?
Yeah, I think the answer is it depends, right? There are some instances where the dependencies I'm usually looking at can be shipped in containers, basically, right? So and usually it's around like tooling, and Darcy's saying I know of many bad practices.
Yeah.
Well, I have another example where analysis of executables, and so they're in there as part of your test suite.
Exactly that.
And so
usually
complaining that the binaries are in there, yes, that's good. I want to test them.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's a situation where I'm probably going to try to stick all of that stuff in a container, so it's not considered a dependency, right? And pull the container, do that check in CI instead. I think it could be worthwhile, and maybe this is not the time to do it, but to have a discussion on what are the bad practices, and maybe we can use that to inform what the better practices are, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, cool. Do we have any other comments on that topic before we move on? I think we should continue to the discussion first. So if there is not something already filed in the All-Star repo related to this, Godofredo, I would suggest.
So the second question is the one that's further down. Should we discuss that now? All-Star allow individual binaries to be opt-out.
Okay, I think what happened was the discussion topic that's at the top is listed. Yeah, so it's the same discussion if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, so the second discussion I think is, okay, so I asked what's the best practice, and maybe we don't know the best practice, but the next step is, okay, let's say I do need binaries. Let's say I'm following best practices, my own best practice on those. How do I tell All-Star and or Scorecards to ignore those? So for All-Star, we could right now, you know, with the spirit of like launch and iterate, if you have binary artifacts and you want to allow them, you just disable this policy. Clearly, you know, as with all software, we can make it better and have a list to opt out, whether it's you list the files, maybe list the files in the hashes, maybe you put a dot something file like is recommended there. I think all of those are potential solutions, and I have this issue here where we can discuss it. So feel free to drop your suggestions, Godofredo, there.
And I do think that could be a nice one, you know, generating a skeleton of a bomb, I guess, for the binaries that are in the repo and storing that in a file.
Yeah, if you have a file with the list, you have that list there to kind of know exactly where all the binary artifacts are in your repo. Because if they're not in that list, then you would be getting an all-star alert. But secondary to this is that we could do the filtering on the all-star side, but we are running the scorecard check underneath. And I created a second issue in the scorecard repo is should scorecard be able to also have this option? You know, it wouldn't be on for the public results, because this would be like if you're running scorecard on your own repo and you want to, you know what to ignore. Another option I'm proposing here is that there are certain well-known artifacts that, like for example, the Gradle wrapper here, on their own, by their own admission, there's 2.8 million GitHub repos with this binary checked in. And there are recommended security best practices. Like they say on their page, this is a vulnerability, like this is a potential, you know, vector of attack. You should be doing these checks and validations in your repo if you actually check this in. Should scorecards be able to, you know, opt this out specifically, like this well-known binary, or or should it, and if it does, should it also only allow you, like give you a passing score if you are also following the best practices for that particular binary? So I think that's a longer term discussion.
Yeah, I think my concern with all of these things, checks in general, is like, what is the good stopping point, right? For us to where is our responsibility stop? Yeah. And you know, so there is an element of it like where I feel, hey, like don't do bad things to your repo. And if you're maintaining a repo, you should be in charge of that largely. I think there are things that we can report on, but the second we get into, here's this very specific file, right, for this ecosystem that does foo-bar baz, make sure it's not checked in, right? Then we sort of assume the responsibility of enumerating those files for multiple ecosystems, right? And we spend the time on trying to do the enumeration instead of improving the checks. So I'm personally negative. I'm personally -1 to specific files. I think opening, like allowing the knob for people to specify files that they want to exclude from the check makes sense, but having us specify which files those should be doesn't.
Yeah, just to add to this, I think we had a very similar discussion with OSS fuzz and cluster fuzz light here, where you can't pin those dependencies, so they wanted an exception. I think the outcome of that discussion was very similar, that Scorecard should still probably be complaining about that, but something like All-Star or someone like a client level policy can say that we don't care about this Scorecard complaining about this check. So.
Yeah, and at that point you receive some sort of modified score based on, like if we were scanning, if we were scanning ignorant of your ignore file, then it's 1 score. If we realize the ignore file exists, then it gets modified.
But by the way, the same thing happens for, I think, many of these other things.
Yeah.
I'm actually thinking, and I don't think anybody has necessarily agreed to that, but I think in the long term, it would be useful to have 2 scores. Here is I accept all the claims from the project, and the other is I'm going to ignore the ignore files and everything else, and just here's the raw score. And the one is basically more useful to the developers of the project. I know this is okay. And the other is I don't trust those crazy developers. Tell me what they do, regardless of whether I should believe them.
Yeah, and I'm kind of I think this comes up for all of our checks. Some of the stuff that Jordan logged in that Slack chat and issue reflects it as well. And I think that David, you had filed something way back about
Yes.
modifying scores based on our tolerance.
Right. That's right. It's the same. It's the same thing because
we got to
basically,
solve it. Yeah.
do you trust the project or not? If the project's malicious, you shouldn't trust it. Although maybe you shouldn't use their code in the first place.
Yeah.
Most of our vulnerabilities are of the unintentional kind, and we're just trying to steer developers who aren't aware of good practices to do good practices.
Exactly.
If you've got malicious developers, then yeah, but this Scorecard's not going to find malicious code subtly hidden inside there. That's just not what it's good for.
Go to Freda.
Yeah, I just wanted to point it out that a second use case for this would be to landing incremental improvements. Like for example, we have like 20 different binaries that we need to delete somehow, but it is very complicated. We will like a way to avoid that we are regressing on adding new binaries as we are cleaning them up. So for example, we delete one, then we removed it from the allowed list or whatever we want to call it, and we continue improving over time and avoiding regressing.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, if you look at the, like the hardened security steps for like step security, where by default, the policy will give you audit, and then it's your responsibility to switch to block when you're ready. If you look at, from the all-star perspective, you've got a few different paths you can go down, right? One being log issue, or fix, and fix for the most part, I think is not implemented for many of the reporting pieces. But that's I think the permissive versus full on block makes a lot of sense, right? I think that we have enough of the levers already open to say like this is an exception, right, for several of those checks.
Permissive versus pessimistic or something? Maybe we need better terms, but
yeah.
wait.
default to pessimistic and
I would say give both scores. You know, here's
yeah.
the permissive, here's the pessimistic, and then you don't have to, you know, you don't have to turn on a flag.
Yeah, so just to clarify, I mean, Laurent is working on this feature where we'll just dump out the true raw facts from scorecard. So basically, you can apply your own policy and get whatever kind of change score that you want. So that way, you'll have your opinionated score, but you'll also have a score from scorecard.
And so the intention is that this is the, I guess, the raw results with the and like the policy, the Serif policy applied to it or something.
Yeah, Laurent is working on dumping out just the raw results, and the policy would be something that comes from users, and like so that they can work on the raw JSON or the raw claims, and then dump out either scores or any kind of failures that they think is useful.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, and by the way, I really like the point about enabling, you know, preventing regressions. There's a lot of stuff like where Scorecards doesn't detect, for example, tooling in a lot of cases, and being able to say, yeah, we do have it. It's right here. At least, you know, you know, make Scorecard still useful for those, even when Scorecards doesn't detect some things, because then you can at least use those things.
Cool. So it sounds like we've got some things in flight, some things that still need discussion. Again, I would request that anyone who's interested in working on this or chatting about this hit the issues on the respective repos. Anything we need to cover before we move on to the next topic?
Just a point when Azim was talking about the user customized policy and was this dumping all the score from the scorecard. So is that will show all the deviation from the actual scorecard moving to the next policy with the user policy, customized policy? Is any point where it's showing this deviation?
So yeah, so the idea would be that we when we produce the raw public score, like this is the expectation if you had no exceptions to the default policy, right? And then there's another scenario where you'd produce I've customized this scorecard check and I want to do XYZ. I'm okay with certain things being wrong or not to the expected intentions of the default public policy, and have a score that's derived off of that, right? So like how to tweak we want to enable that, and then and then also figure out like how does the score change based on those changes, right? If you've done something that is completely, I don't know, you decide that 0 maintainers is okay for your maintainers check or something like that, right? That's something that we should still like, whoa. I know you configure this, but are you really sure that's okay?
Yeah.
So, and I think it's going to be a discussion and scaling based on each of the checks. I don't think we're going to have a blanket policy for any one of these.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Something like we can make which some of the raw policy, raw evidences, our collection should not be changed, or these at least the basis should not change. You have some limitation for customization.
Yeah, I think that baseline policy plus whatever you decide to customize it as, like there should still be hey, you're really going out of the bounds of like what's acceptable here. Like it should still report that, right?
Okay,
and I think that part of that is a function of giving you the baseline score, right? If you're coming in so far, like even with the grading with a curve, if you're still coming in under a certain value, we should say, hey, listen, I know you said this, but are you sure? And how that works we can discuss, but yeah, I would suggest leaving comments on these issues if you're interested in that too.
I think one of the challenges though is that right now there's a lot of projects where scorecards, you may meet all the criteria and scorecards won't detect it. The most obvious one is the next item, which is you're not on GitHub.
So let's get into it.
All right. All right. So I was going to propose, but before doing that, wanted to raise the issue if somebody's already done this. But earlier today, there was an OpenSSF governing board meeting. New rep there is Jonathan Hunt, who works for GitLab. And right now, Scorecards only works on GitHub. I mean, I've been trying to make adjustments to the Scorecards text to at least it isn't locked to GitHub, but it only actually generates anything useful on GitHub. So I'd like to contact.
Yeah, let's be a bit more precise, right?
Oh, please, absolutely. If I'm mistaken, please correct me.
So if you were to run local checks, it would work regardless of where you were, right? And so
well,
as,
assuming
you
you're
access to it, right?
Well, no, assuming you're using Git and.
Okay, right. Okay, all right. So let's baseline at you're using Git. Right.
Okay. No Mercurial, no no CVS, no many of the other tools that people do use.
So let's baseline. Yeah. So let's so let's baseline at you're using Git. And then I think that we're going to encounter the same problem that we do with just the idea of I spend enough time working on these different things that are you can stick a lot of things into the box. And the thing that gets the most support is the thing that people have the most context on, right? So I think that because we are on GitHub, we are going to have a natural bias to building things for GitHub. That's not to say that should be the only thing that we should do, but at the same time, if we are going to build support in certain vectors for GitLab, then we would request that we have support from GitLab in terms of not just yes, you should do it, but also personnel to help out with that.
I got that. Yeah. So I think basically is before I went anywhere, because I was going to suggest. I mean, I can go send I have the ability to send an email, but basically tell Jonathan Hunt, hey, Scorecards right now really looks, it looks for data on GitHub. These criteria, at least many of them, probably also make sense on GitLab. Can you or somebody else from there maybe take a look? At the very least, suggesting where to get the data and ideally some pull requests.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think, making sure that we're using, and this goes into for the maintainers who've been having this discussion. What do we do with all of the clients? All of our clients are maybe not consistently written, and there's an opportunity for here's what the interface looks like for this client. Go build the GitLab version. Go build the X provider version of it, right? So I think if we can get to that point where we genericize enough of the components, then it makes a lot of sense for someone who has GitLab expertise to jump in and say okay, I have enough of the road, I have enough of the blueprint to do it for GitLab.
Yeah, and my experience has been when you have one and you generalize to two, you start noticing things that are more generalizable right away.
Exactly.
Nothing. The number one way to port software, make software portable, is to port it.
So I definitely agree. I know that because I've seen it in Kubernetes. We've had DEX vulnerabilities, for example, because we've got all these plugins. We had one that around XML validation for the SAML plugin, and I'm like, cool, I'll help patch this vulnerability, but I am not familiar with this code, and it's because there was another thing stuck in the box because they're this would be a useful plugin for someone, but not necessarily having the support to maintain it long term. So as long as we are, as long as we can move forward with the promise that we will try to deliver generic enough interfaces for people to implement on top of, and married with, can we bring people who have expertise of this to help maintain it as well? Then I think we've potentially got a good plan.
Okay. Yeah. Obviously, I can't promise what GitLab does. That's their decision. But I wanted to give a heads up before I did this in case there was some issue I wasn't aware of.
Other maintainers. Okay. I don't want to yap too much. We'll make sure we get thoughts from other maintainers too.
Yeah, I just want to chime in. I think what Stephen said, basically, we have interface which will let us integrate with GitLab. I just don't think we are focusing on it right now because we're just short on resources. So yeah, it'll be very, very helpful if you could get us in touch with GitLab or someone from GitLab who's interested in contributing here. We can even look into like adding them as maintainers if they have contributed enough. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, step one is whether or not somebody there will step up. So I'll shoot an email and we'll see. Should I CC somebody?
So yeah, let me. So I think what we should do, and I meant to mention to the maintainers if I haven't already, is at least set up a group for the project specific maintainers. I don't know if that needs to be on, if it's on Google Groups or we do it on lists or groups.io or something. But like you should be able to send a note to scorecard maintainers and get a response, especially as it relates to, rather it doesn't exist today, right? But it should. I'm pretty sure it doesn't exist today, but it should, and we should do that.
Okay, how's this? I'm all for a long-term create a scorecard mailing, create a scorecards mailing list. I think in the brief short term though, all I want to do is just CC somebody.
Yeah, so we do have the mailing list. So just to be clear, we do have the mailing list today for like I think the scorecard dev, right? You can use that will hit everyone who's subscribing, but like very specifically, if you want to reach maintainers, we don't have a maintainer specific list.
Okay.
Right. And we can out of band give you the maintainer addresses if you want to keep the scope smaller for the meantime.
Yeah. Let me just ask a point of question: does somebody want to be CC'd on an email I sent?
You can CC me.
Why not? Sorry, why not use the Scorecards dev Google groups so that instead of it being in an email thread, it's there over there. It's easier for. I can post that link so that Google group is there for now.
Scorecards dev. I think I'm on that list.
Yeah, you're probably on the list. And it should be at the bottom. Scorecard dev, OSSF scorecard dev at.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So I'll just drop.
Go readmes. What an amazing concept.
Go readmes, right?
I can't tell you how many times something's not on the readme, but carry on. Good for you.
So I, with the screen share, I usually am not paying attention to chat. So I just want to take some time and make sure that we come back and address some of the questions that were asked in chat. Cool with everyone? Sweet. Okay.
Yep.
So we talked about the bad practices stuff briefly.
Yep.
Are all sources, hosts, and artifacts treated equally at the moment? I don't think they are, and I think it goes back to that whole ish, right? I think it's going to depend on what we have most experience with and what we've built, right? So one of the issues that are currently open from Jordan or from me, proxying Jordan is that there's lots of experience on the NPM side there, right? And there is a plan to publish best practices for NPM package management, right? So that's one example of like once that guidance is out, that's something that we could integrate into our systems, right? SQLite, why not Git?
Sorry, Stefan, what did you say about the NPM best practices?
Sorry, there is so there's an issue here.
Yeah, the new issue that you created.
Right.
Oh yeah, just the point on the NPM best practices. Like, sorry, I missed what you said. I was distracted.
Oh, right. So I think there's a plan to publish an NPM best practices or a set of best practices for various package managers. So we should stay tuned for that and see what we can integrate.
I'm working on this.
Oh, cool.
And we
well,
plan to,
there we go.
we plan to have a draft. We plan to have a draft next week.
Okay.
To discuss at the next best practice meeting.
Cool. So is there a watch this space kind of thing for folks on the call?
The repo?
Yeah, the repo. You can subscribe, but we haven't advertised it too much yet. So
okay. Okay.
I guess on Tuesday we'll do that more.
Okay, cool. All right. Moving down the list. From Alan, is there a thought about storing attestations of certain checks being run out of band without needing manual overrides to bring the score up? Great question. I don't know that we have an answer. Who is attesting, and do you trust that attestation?
Yeah, it's just so we have a couple open source operating system projects, and I was running the scorecard on them. I'm not too happy with the results, so I'm like working on some fixes. But there's some that I have to get into how the scores are being created. But without knowing all the details yet, I was just trying to figure out if there's a way in our other pipelines to bring like a attribute file in to just say, yeah, we ran that link check in another pipeline or something. I was just thinking out loud, just because you guys were talking about having a raw score and then a policy-based score, and we have we have partners we work with, and they are throwing issues at us that we know we've solved already, and so there's a lot of background noise that, while a raw score is good to know about, it still causes churn on the teams to research something or to review a ticket that came in that says, hey, says you're not doing any CI checks. We don't like that. So what are you going to do about it? Like, no, we do CI checks, and this is all about it.
Yeah, and I think this is also a failing of it's not really a failing. It's just what you do and don't have access to, right? So like there are certain instances where if you run a local check, you're not going to get the same responses as you will if you're running against the repo, the public repo, right? So that's one thing to consider if they're running local checks versus against your repo. I think there is like, what is the remediation path for any one check, right? If you have done the right things and your score does not go up, then that's our problem, right? That means that we're not exposing enough information for that remediation to be counted, right?
Okay.
So I think, but it's hard to generalize any one specific case, right? So it'd be helpful, like when you run into those, to file issues or so look for existing issues, because I think a lot of these things are captured in the repo. And maybe we haven't gotten to it, and maybe it's a great opportunity for you to come in and contribute to that.
Yeah, as I get more into it, I'll be able to open more better issues. But at the moment, I think I'm.
Can you clarify
part of the curve?
Can you clarify something? Is the as best you understand it, is the problem that it found a lot of things that didn't like, and therefore it should be reporting, hey, I found X, I shouldn't have it? Or is it looking for something that exists and didn't find it?
We have a really large Jenkins pipeline, so we run a bunch of stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't traced down like what could conform to the standards. So I have like some legwork I have to do on myself to see like what's really an important thing to bring up or not.
Okay.
I was just bringing it up that I'm likely to find something that we'll be checking outside in some area, and I can just envisioning it happening in our situation. I'll have to it'll probably take me a week and a half or so to come back and tell you specifically something that, because I ran the scorecard once or twice, and we have a goal to get to the best practices badge and be a good citizen with all this. So yeah, so I mean, we're just on our journey. So as I was just bringing it up, that maybe if we don't get 100% there, I'd still like us to have all the checks there, just maybe they're not being caught the right way. So I'll let you know.
So yeah, so I think that, for as much as you're willing to share, I'm sensitive to the sensitivity. As much as you're willing to share or to, provide data for us to improve, that'd be awesome. When I hear this, I think of like container image scanning, for example, right? If you look at Shrivi, there's a flag that is ignore unfixed, right? So there are instances where you will have there's a report of a CV, and you're like, yes, I know it exists. This is bad. I would like to fix it, but there's no upstream fix for it, right? So there's a scenario where you'll run the report for your container image scanning, and you'll get a dump of all these CVEs that you actually can't fix because they're not fixed on the operating system level, right? So that's why that flag exists. And I'm sure that there are scenarios just like that within within our code that we need to kind of guard against. So yeah, any data that you can provide from the real world would be super helpful. Okay. Not to say we don't live in the real world, but we're on the internet right now. All right, so folks, we're running to the top of the hour, and I don't recall if this is one of those calls where you can go free after. We're going straight to 5 Eastern. So let's jump into what's left over. And David, it looks like it's you. We need to revisit pinned dependencies. Sorry.
We skipped the first 2 because we skipped from demos to the all-star discussion.
Oh no.
Yep.
We did?
Oh no. Oh no, we did. Oh geez.
Where was this?
So we were doing the demo discussion, and then that led into the all-star discussion, which was the
so the demo was the first topic, and then it was supposed to be the mission. My bad.
I don't see that. I don't see that.
So demo discussion was up here. I pulled it down.
There's nothing in it. It's empty.
No, you were typing notes. You were typing notes under the all-star one, so I dragged the notes from the demo discussion into that. But that means we skipped everything before it.
Yes, I think that is an apt summary of how we got to where we are. And I apologize. I'm using Azim's computer to talk about my topic.
Go for it. And sorry for kicking you to the bottom of the agenda accidentally.
Not at all. It's not ranked on importance. It was just ranked on who opened the doc first. So a quick plug following up on something that I talked about in our last meeting, which is we have a general need as our group is growing to kind of formalize a mission and vision, just to be clear on where this project is going. I think these apply to both All-Star and Scorecards. So if you are interested in helping craft what those are going to look like, I opened up a couple of issues on each project that are linked in this doc. Tag yourself there if you're interested. We'll kind of work on the right format to do this kind of joint writing. I think we'll see how far the GitHub issue can take us, but we may have, kind of a special one-off meeting for anyone that's interested in writing. So I think we'll give it about a week of just being on a GitHub issue, and then, if it seems like having a more online meeting would be more productive, we'll figure it out from there. So that's a plug.
Yeah, I would say as much as we can do asynchronously, and if it comes to we do have to meet about it, I would say instead of having an ad hoc meeting, we do it in one of these meetings and make that the agenda for the.
I think that's a great idea, and by the next meeting, we'll have a pretty good sense of how far we made it on the GitHub issue.
Cool. All right, so the clock has started. 2 weeks, everyone.
Awesome.
And I think, do we want to call it here? Or do we want some, so Laurent, do you have, is the low risk token permission quick? Or we kind of chatted about it, didn't we? Or
No, I don't think we did. How much time do we have left?
We've got a minute, so I don't think we're gonna get it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll be able to answer.
All right, so I will pull some of the things that we didn't get to cover up into the upcoming topics. The last thing that we should do is a facilitator transfer for the next meeting. So who is interested in being the bosun of this fine group of folk for the next meeting?
Yep, I can volunteer. This is Brian from Google.
Awesome, Brian. And especially if the next meeting ends up being the roadmap discussion and fleshing that out, I think that's a perfect match. All right, so I will update the notes accordingly. Or Brian, if you want to drop your name in here.
Yep, I'll just
awesome, cool. Thank you everyone for your time. We will see you at the next one.
Awesome. Stephen, I need one place. Yeah, just for a minute about 1534 issue, the update copyright headers.
Sorry, we're at time. Let's jump into the chat and discuss.
Sure.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay.